I am delighted to give Naomi Klein this award and to thank her for all she has done and yet to do.
It's wonderful to be here with all of you, celebrating the work of one of our most fearless crusaders against corporate greed and in defense of people and the planet. This is a moment to be fearless. Fearlessness is in the air. As I mentioned, I just got back from Occupy Wall Street in New York. I spent a week there. And I've been involved in political activism for a long time. I don't think I've ever felt as hopeful as I feel in this moment. I don't think I've ever experienced something quite as transformative as what I saw there. It's extraordinary. And I just want to tell you a few things about what it feels like to be there. I mean, to be really in the belly of the beast. And to start walking towards Liberty Plaza, as it's been renamed. And as you get closer, maybe 4 blocks away, you start to hear the roar, just the roar of the crowd and the sound of drummings and the feeling of just slight out of controlness that you kind of feel in Rio during Carnival. And this is not a managed campaign. It's a movement. It's moving. It has a heartbeat. And nobody is in control of this thing, and that's what's so wonderful. I just got an email from one of the people who organized this, who's part of the core group 6 weeks ahead of time, having meetings, planning it, and he told me the thing he was most afraid of was that a group of idealistic young people were just going to get smashed by the police. He said not in his wildest dreams did he imagine that this would spread, become national, even international, and that's what's happened. Every day I went down to Occupy Wall Street, most of the people I met were there for the first time. One night at around midnight, I saw this young man, really clean cut, just wandering around the park, clutching a pillow and a sleeping bag. And I asked him if he was looking for a place to put his sleeping bag down. He said, yeah. So I helped him find a place. And he said he was from Long Island. He was here alone. He was a little tentative. He was excited. I saw him the next day, and he was acting like he owned the place. He had a cardboard sign about how everyone's voice counted. There's something about being in the space. You know, this word occupy is really problematic. I've spent a lot of my life fighting occupations of various kind. But what this is really about is putting down roots, taking up space, saying, this is our city, this is our country, this is our public space, even if it happens to be owned by a private development corporation, because we've lost so much of the spirit of the commons in our culture. The culture is changing. And that is really key about this moment, that it isn't just about demands, this media narrative, what's your demand, as if this is just a simple negotiation. The desire in that park is to challenge the fundamental values of the culture, to challenge out-of-control greed, to talk about compassion and interdependence, changing the way we relate to each other. I said to the young people in the plaza that the sign that ultimately caused me to pack my bags and leave my book deadline and go down there was, I saw a picture of a young woman holding a sign that said, I care about you. And I thought that is an incredible thing to say in the heart of this culture where we're trained to look the other way when we see someone in need, and at the extreme end trains us to say, let them die when we hear about somebody who didn't purchase health care. I care about you. That's what's changing. And you know, I have a little message to the 1%ers in the crowd, which is there's room for you too. There are 1%ers down there. And the point is, the way in which we're challenging this culture is we're challenging the idea that we are only our self-interest. That's not all we are. We are capable of compassion. We are capable of solidarity, and that is what is being embodied. I saw a young woman standing on the street corner, and she said, I am the 1%, raise my taxes. My friend Eve Ensler, the wonderful Eve Ensler, just emailed me this photo of a young woman, and she's holding a cardboard sign. It says, I inherited money at 21. I've had health care and dental insurance all my life. I want to live in a world where we all have enough. I have more than enough. Tax me, rich kid for redistribution. And she says in red, that was all in black marker, I am the 1%. I stand with the 99%. That is the task of this moment. So I was sad to leave New York, I have to say. I got a little addicted to that feeling of openness and possibility. But when I arrived in San Francisco, the first thing I was invited to do was to go to Occupy San Francisco and an action today surrounding Wells Fargo. And I realized that this is bigger than a place. This is a state of mind. Occupy Wall Street, it's about finding our fight at long last. And it is about finding each other and realizing that there were so much more of us. There are so much more of us than we thought. And what is amazing about this moment is that we are realizing that more people agree with us and that there is some kind of latent radicalism out there in the culture. We were misled. We're constantly being told that actually we're so much more radical than everyone else, so we have to lower our standards and our expectations and learn to act more like corporations to get anything done. But it turns out, when you just create that openness and that space and you model a more radical action, it wakes something up. How did we miss this? A cultural shift is taking place, and this is one of the things that's so special about being in that park and why these young people are getting so excited. In this city that is just pulsing with consumerism, everywhere you look, you're told to buy something else and that you're inadequate. There is a culture of sharing emerging, sharing healthcare, sharing food, sharing information, a gift economy emerging on the doorstep of Wall Street. It's amazing. So something else that's happening, I don't quite know how to articulate this, but this is a culture that's all about winning. And there's a lot of shame in this culture about admitting that you're losing. And one of the barriers to change is that this culture teaches us always to identify with the winners. And even if that doesn't serve your immediate interests, you're about to become a millionaire. You're about to join the 1%. There is something really important about the fact that people are admitting out loud and shedding their shame that they're losing. That's a really important thing. I know it sounds sad, but I think that it's the prerequisite for the change that we need in this culture, to admit that this system isn't working for most people, for 99% of people. So this is about economics, and this is an environmental gathering. What is the role of a wonderful environmental group like RAN in a moment like this? And I think there really is a role. I think there's a very important role for environmentalists to play in this moment, because we need to talk about the fact that we're not just facing an economic crisis. We're facing an ecological crisis. And we need to draw the connections between the logic that has detonated the infrastructure of this culture and the way it is destroying the natural systems upon which all life depends, and that it is the same logic. These are not two simultaneous crises, they are the same crisis. And in fact, and indeed, that the same logic of corporate greed that is foreclosing on people's homes and their dreams is also foreclosing on these young people's future because of climate change. That the same logic that has trashed the economy is trashing the planet. We need to be making these arguments. This moment, this radical moment, is one where we need to really look deep inside and ask ourselves what our core values are, why we do what we do, what we originally dreamed when we got into this work. Because I think many of us have been so beaten down by those lowered expectations that we've lost that question inside us. What is it that we're working for? What do we really want? No, we're told that the only way that we can save wild places is not because they deserve to exist in their own right, but because they provide ecological services to us. Is that what we really believe? Is that why we are saving rainforests? No, it's not. That's not. We need to remember that. And if we've decided that we can only change the world one corporation at a time, because that's all we can do in a culture that is driven by greed, maybe it's time that we remember that we actually want to change the system, that it isn't just the individual corporations that we want to change. One of the organizers of Occupy Wall Street said to me, the most important thing that we're doing is unlocking the radical imagination. And that is a task for all of us. We need to liberate ourselves of all of these constraints, because there's a new generation that are putting the takeover of our lives on trial, the corporate takeover of our lives on trial in the streets across the country. If we think of ourselves as a small, unpopular, marginal aspect of society, our demands will reflect that. They will be small and defensive. We need to start imagining that we are more popular than we ever thought in our wildest dreams. And we have to give ourselves license, once again, to dream big. Thank you so much. Thank you all.